Hey there, good morning. Welcome to Coffee with Connie. I'm Connie Fuksa. How's everybody doing today? Of course, it seems that I'm having a little trouble with this rotating on my cell phone, so I'm going to have to figure that out on our Facebook Live. But for now, I didn't want to not come to you. I know we had a lot of trouble on Tuesday, and so I wanted to do it today the way that the phone seems to be happy, and then from there we'll figure it out. So hope you guys are having a great start to your Thursday. Thanks so much for taking the time to tune in. If you're tuning in and this is something you think is valuable, hit that share button, because if you think it's valuable, there's probably people in your circle that feel the same way that may need the information that we're talking about. So a lot of stuff going on in the housing market, and so I'm trying to talk to you guys about a lot of things that seem to be coming up. A lot of questions that we have. And so today I wanted to talk to you about the ownership and who needs to actually come to closing, because this is a question we get a lot of times that people just don't understand when they purchase a home and then their life changes, how that affects the ownership. And then when you go to sell it, what needs to take place in order for you to be able to sell that property. So very rarely do we get to talk about the seller's side of the process because there's not quite as much involved. The buyer side is very involved because they're getting a mortgage. They're borrowing money from someone to buy this house, and it's a lot of money they're borrowing, so there's a lot of steps. But on the seller side, there's not quite as much for us to talk about, but I really do like to talk about these things because these are things that affect you, and you need to know before you actually get to the point where you're selling the property, but definitely before you get to the closing table. So today I wanted to talk about the ex situation. So you bought a piece of property, you bought your dream home with your ex, you guys got married, life was wonderful. Excuse me. Everything was great. You were living in your dream home. It was beautiful. And then things changed in your life and things didn't work out. And so you separated, or maybe you got divorced. And so now you're selling the home that you guys owned together. Maybe you lived in the house for a while after you separated, and now you're selling that property, but you never removed that ex's name off the ownership of the property. So the thing I want to explain to you, and this goes for all different kinds of scenarios, I picked the ex because that's really common, but when you sell that property, anyone who's listed on the ownership of that property, who's on that deed, who originally was a purchaser, if nothing has changed, you haven't done a deed removing someone's name off that ownership, they have to sign off on this documentation. So they either have to be available at closing, they have to sign a power of attorney, or we have to prove why they can't be there. And the only proof, when I say why they can't be there, I don't want to have a confusion. If someone has passed away, we have to prove that they've passed away. So when future owners take ownership of this property, we can guarantee that the owners that signed the documents are in fact the only owners that had an interest in the property. So in this scenario, let's say you have two sellers, husband and wife, wife and wife. You have two people that are married. They were in love, they bought a house, made a family, life was great, and then things changed, and they separated and got divorced. When they did their divorce, they did a divorce decree, and the divorce decree says that the husband gets the property and the wife is moving on. And so maybe the husband refinanced the property and paid the wife her interest in the property, but she never signed off her ownership interest. And now the husband wants to sell the property. The husband has to have the wife sign off on that deed in order to sell it to the new owner. And the reason for that is because we're guaranteeing that ownership to the new owner and to the mortgage lender who's loaning all this money for the buyer to purchase that property. And they will not take that ownership, and the mortgage lender will not give a mortgage if they can't be guaranteed that that property is 100% going to be owned by this buyer. And if all of the previous owners have not signed off their ownership, then that can't be guaranteed. So as I say all the time, we're protecting home ownership, and I can't protect that home ownership if I'm not positive that everyone who had an ownership interest has signed the paperwork. So if you have this situation and you've done the divorce decree and that spouse is no longer in the area, but they've not signed off on the deed that transfers the ownership and given you complete ownership of that property, you can't sell that property without them signing documentation at closing or beforehand to get that deed processed. So if you have a question about this, let's talk about it. But if you have an owner that is on the ownership of that property and for some reason they can't be at closing, we need to figure out how to handle that. So as I said, whether it's a power of attorney, whether it is that they've passed away and we've got to prove that and include that in the transfer of this ownership, or if they signed off on some other documentation but didn't sign off on that deed, we've got to track them down. We've got to find them. We've got to get that paperwork signed. So if you have questions about any of this kind of information or any kind of things that deal with closing or your purchase or your mortgage, or if you're a seller and you have some questions about what's going to happen at closing, how the closing process works, what needs to happen in order signing the contract or going through that, let me know. I don't have a real estate license and I'm not a mortgage lender, but I've been doing title for a long time. And because of the nature of what we do is coordinating a lot of these pieces, I have some insight into some of this, but I also have a lot of good partners that we work with that can answer a lot of these questions for us as well. So feel free to reach out to me or anyone on our team at Foot Title Group. We are licensed in Maryland and Virginia to do your closing, but we have lots of resources that are effective all across the country on our website. So go to our website, www.footetitlegroup.com. And if you're a buyer, click on the buyers tab. There's resources. If you're a seller, there's resources there for you. There's also a monthly flyer we put out that is a lot of frequently asked questions concised into one particular document. So you can get in there and download that as well. Lots of resources, because I absolutely believe that if you're educated, then you can make your best choices. So hopefully I gave you a little bit more insight into the seller side today. I'd like to continue to do that. And if you have questions, you just need to reach out to me and let me know so I can help share those questions with other people as well. The other thing is, if you'd hit that share button on the bottom, I'd really, really appreciate it, because as I said, if you're watching, that means it's obviously a topic that you find interesting, and I'm sure that the people that you follow or that follow you may find it interesting as well. The other thing is, as we talked about, we are doing these drawings for this awesome Coffee with Connie coffee mug. It's a 20-ounce coffee mug. If you're into coffee, even if you're not, this is a great item to have, and all you have to do is hit that share button, because the person that shares the most each month gets the coffee mug. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Please let me know if I can answer any questions for you. That is very important to me. I want to help you understand the process. So thank you so much for tuning in to Coffee with Connie. I'm Connie Fuksa, and I hope you guys have a fantastic Thursday, and I'll talk to you again real soon. Bye-bye.